we're probably fully again.
Evening.
You can choose where to sit, you don't have to go where.
I'm here anyway, so.
Right, okay.
And you come with your
mine for both loads of cash and yeah, there weren't any in the office.
Well, we'll take a check.
All right, okay. An old-fashioned check.
Bank transfer.
Not take Apple Pay.
Yes, so you've got me about the next one.
I'm really catching up a bit of work today. It's all sorts. We'll have a look. Me and Donna on Friday when she's back in. And then see what kind of funding is available like that. It's probably all sorts of other streams as well.
Well, with Becker and Lampside.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a look at those. There's also as well. Yeah. Where's the thing on something like that?
That's the cost of replacing lamps that were breached and the contract.
Oh, right, okay.
There's some other stuff,
Right, okay. Yeah. Friday.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6:30, so we'll make a start. First of all, can I do introductions? My name is David Witt. I'm our chair at the committee. We've got a couple of colleagues who are running a little bit late, and they'll introduce themselves when they come. If I can go to my left.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. My name is David Walker, Area Coordinator for West Craven Committee.
Hello everyone, my name is Laura Barnes. I'm the Senior Planning Officer in the Planning Department.
Good evening everybody, I'm Councillor Brian Hartley, on the board.
Good evening, Councillor David Hartley, Councillor for EB and Coates Wards.
Evening, Susan Land, Councillor for EB and Coates.
Councillor Laura Wood, Councillor Brunswick.
Good evening, John Spencer, Councillor representing Barnsley Town Council.
Good evening, Tom Griffith. I'm on the neighbourhood team over in Nelson, but I help out in West Craven and send teams out. Gareth Ingham, police officer for West Craven. Good evening.
Joanne Eccles, Committee Administrator at Pendle Council.
Thank you very much. Now, Chris Church said he was going to be a little bit late because he had a previous meeting, and Sharon Ashley also had something, she'll be about 10 minutes, 15 minutes before she gets here. Can I just check that we have got, change my glasses, Lee Greenwood, yeah, thank you very much. Phil, yeah. Debbie, yeah. And Gary, lovely. Thank you very much. I'll put with the glasses. Those are speakers on the plan application we'll come to in due course. We've got a little bit of procedural stuff to do. The first item on the agenda is appointment of a vice chair. and I did tap David Hartley up for this, but if anybody else is chuntering to be vice chair, you know, welcome to vie for it. But I would nominate David.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Are there any further nominations? No. I have to say that, given that I don't attend this in meetings or anything like that, there'll be absolutely nothing to do. But there we go. Can we just take a vote in favour? Thank you. Item 2 is declaration of interest. And we'll go back onto the glasses. This is where any councillors who have a prejudicial pecuniary interest in any of the items need to declare it, leave the room and not take part in the discussion. Are there any? Nope. Very good, thank you. Item 3 is public question time. This is an opportunity for members of the public to raise any issues that aren't otherwise on the agenda this evening. Issues to do with West Craven, obviously. Are there any? No, thank you very much. That brings us on to item 4, the minutes of last meeting. Will somebody move those as a correct record, please? David, thank you. Have you seconded? Susan, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. And that brings us on to item 5, which are police matters and community safety issues. Members of the committee have in front of them a table that Gareth's probably spent about 2 hours working on this afternoon, or several tables. And the first thing I'm going to do is ask Gareth if he could run through the crime statistics and give us a bit more information.
Sure. I mean, it pretty much says everything, you know, that it needs to. I want to go through every single thing on the...
I think it's a case of if there are any notable issues, any exceptions, if there are any patterns that we count it.
Yeah, at the minute, currently, there's no kind of notable patterns that I'm aware of. Assaults seem to have jumped up in certain areas, but that's not really something that I can do a great deal about. I don't know whether they are domestic assaults or assaults from pubs, or I have no idea what they are. They just get reported to us and get dealt with in due course. Yeah, it's the crime figures, truth be told, seem to be relatively good at the moment. Is there anything you'd like to know more about?
Gareth, just looking at the assault figures, they're more or less the same for the old Craven ward, which covers the centre of Bantwick. In the old Courts ward, they're down considerably.
It's the eerie ones that have jumped up from 5 to 15.
That's the ones I was going to.
Yeah, I have no idea why that's jumped up so much. I'm hoping that, I mean, you can see in February 2025, they jumped from the January at 5 all the way up to 11. I'm hoping it's just one of those freak things that we get from time to time. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case anyway.
Okay. A question from me, which is an issue that the committee touched on at the last meeting. At the time, we were having bother on the buses.
Yes.
Young people doing all sorts of nefarious things. And since then, I'm aware of at least one instance where young people have tried to open emergency doors, chase buses down, all that sort of stuff. Is there anything that's happened with that?
Absolutely. So yesterday we interviewed one male one youth for 2 criminal matters. One of those was criminal damage to one of the buses. He's fully admitted it was on CCTV, was identified. So he has been referred through to Yacht, and he's going through to their panel to make a decision on what's going to happen with it and what the next steps are. So that's happened now. Whilst we're on duty, whilst we're on duty, we do pay attention to a lot of the buses and a lot of bus stops. And when we're around, there doesn't seem to be a huge amount going on. Unfortunately, on our days off, this seems to be when we get the issues in the buses. At the minute, things just seem to be calming down slightly. And I'm hoping the fact that this kind of ringleader, now he's been dealt with for criminal offences on the buses, we're going to see that calming down quite a lot more.
Thank you. Brian, eh?
I would just like to add a positive to that. So I got on the bus about 2 days ago, and there was an incident reported quite a number of weeks ago regarding my son, and the bus driver said she rang the police straight away, and she said, I commend the police and how quickly they dealt with that situation. We always hear so many negatives about the situation. She just said she was really appreciative actually of how well you dealt with that, and that's a group of youths.
Brilliant.
Okay. Other comments or questions?
Sorry, yeah, just going on to the assaults.
Oh, yeah. In which one, sorry?
Well, just in general. Is this sort of like verbal assaults or physical assaults?
It's physical.
It's on a physical assault?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other kind of what you might describe as a verbal assault will come under a public order offence, which is slightly different, and those aren't locked down here.
Okay. At the last meeting, we had a bit of a discussion about an incident that took place in Earby, where there were allegations that the police had been slow to respond. On social media, on Facebook, it was said that somebody had been waving a knife about, although there is no evidence to support the fact that a knife had been waved about. And I know that both yourself and the Inspector, Rob Gray, has come back to me with information which sort of like contradicts what somebody in authority has been saying. Kind of authority from the point of view that they're an elected representative.
Yeah.
And the inspector was quite concerned that this misinformation was being given out. Could you give the committee any further assurance about the incident in question?
Absolutely.
The way it's handled, things like that?
So that incident itself happened. There were 2 police logs that came in, and on both of those police logs there was no mention of any knives, any weapons or anything like that. The initial call, due to the location, did go through to West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, can never remember which one it is, and then they put the log in and sent it straight through to us. We were on scene within 22 minutes. The male in question was dealt with. He had been involved in a bit of a to-do with somebody else that had left the scene. He was displaying, I believe, some kind of mental health issues, whether that be drug-related or not, I'm not sure. He was searched and there was no knife or any weapon or anything found on him at all. He was then taken away from the area, taken home and left in the care of family members.
Okay, thank you very much. Sharon, are you alright? There is a space here. I'm not quite sure which build that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll We'll let Sharon get settled.
No problem.
In terms of positive action, I'm going to put you on the spot here now.
Okay.
You've been looking at helping some facilities for diversionary activities, and specifically we've been looking at a pump track, and putting you on the spot because we've seen what max funding we can get towards that.
Absolutely.
Have you got any positive leads?
So at the minute, we are going to be looking at funding streams available to us directly in the police. We have also got contact from the bike place in Barnoldswick.
Hope Technology.
Hope Technology, thank you. They have access to various different organisations in the biking world, Olympians and all sorts. They've got funding streams that are open to them, so we're hoping we can apply for funding through the police for our stuff, and then also if we speak to Hope Technology, and we already have done, they're going to be getting on board and pointing us in a direction to perhaps access some of the funding streams that we wouldn't ordinarily look at or have access to, or perhaps no. It's a world we're just delving into for a minute.
Okay, lovely, thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? If not, can we move on to community safety matters? So this is any issues that people would like to raise community safety related, not necessarily for police enforcement, but you know, sort of looking at it from what can organisations, local authorities do collectively to address issues. Are there any things that people want to raise? Lola?
My question for police and community safety. Is there any trend locally or regionally around racially aggravated hate crimes?
We've had, I wouldn't say exactly a trend. We have had a couple of incidents that happened randomly. We believe it to be some of the local youths. Going back perhaps September time, September, there was a racially aggravated incident involving some of the youths and a taxi driver. The taxi driver chased these youths, gripped one of them and called the police. He got taken home and anyway, he wasn't interested in prosecuting a child. So we give him what's called an acceptable behaviour contract, trying to curb his behaviour and divert him away. That same youth in December was involved in another racially aggravated public order. That's who we interviewed yesterday. And so we've now diverted him through to the youth offending team. They're going to look as a whole at what his previous is, or his past history, and the incidents that he's been involved in, which includes the bus incident as well, and make a decision as to where he needs to go, whether it be diversionary activities, whether it be a court process, whether it be something else. But that's for that panel to make a decision on. Again, I think it's one person as opposed to a trend in the community. That's just my thoughts on it. I'm hoping that now one of them, if there is maybe a small group of people with thoughts of those nature, the racist thoughts, I'm hoping that they perhaps think again now that one of them has been dealt with for a criminal matter, and I hope to see a reduction in it. Like I say, it has been
probably three incidents, but I'm hoping we can get that down to absolutely nothing.
I suppose my follow-up question then is, does the local policing team have a finger on the pulse for formations of fascist groups? I'm just increasingly conscious that we're going back into like the 70s and 80s in terms of the national rhetoric.
We have with various teams within the police who look at extreme left-wing, extreme right-wing groups and what they're doing. So any kind of issues that arise, certainly locally, they pay attention to and link in with me, and if not myself, Don or the PCSO, or if we're not here, whoever else it may well be from the neighbourhood policing team. I don't believe that there is any kind of major issues of that nature within West Craven. I just think it's a mindless idiot who wants to try and upset people and just cause issues, and hopefully we've done enough to stamp that out, and certainly if we haven't, then we will be taking the matter further. It will be going to court next time.
Thank you, that's clarification. Can you comment on Pendle as a whole?
Pendle as a whole?
Yeah.
Not really. I only kind of concentrate on West Craven, so sorry. You can ask a question.
Ryan, yeah.
I'm here to speak on this. There has been quite a lot of gossip through the grapevine in the local West Craven area regarding drugs at the moment and potentially fatal substances that are being dealt out to kind of put the community at rest.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So this is something we've been looking at in the past week or so. We're well aware that things have been posted on Facebook. So this has been looked at, and there's no evidence to back this up whatsoever. We've been through coroner's reports, we've been through toxicology reports, and there's nothing to back this up whatsoever. I believe that it is just somebody posting things on Facebook, assuming that that's going to be the, as opposed to what the truth of the matter is. That's not to say that there isn't a drugs problem. You know, there are drugs in the area, and again, that's something that we're looking into. But yeah, certainly not of the nature that we report on Facebook.
Okay. Can I ask, is there anything further? If not, can thank Gareth and Todd very much for coming this evening. We generally give you a bit of a kick in when you don't turn up.
Right, okay.
So we'll try and be positive and praising you for coming along this evening. But there probably are better things that you can be doing with your time. So thank you very much, and hopefully we will see you, or we'll see somebody from the police in a month's time able to consider these issues in further detail.
No problem.
Thank you
very much. Cheers.
If you guys want to move down a bit, then make things a bit tight. Really great. I mean, easy. John could stop where he is, and Sharon and Chris could come down, something like that.
Yeah.
That just gives us a little bit of room for our next item, which is moving on to planning application. We only have the one planning application to consider this evening, but we have 4 speakers. So if I just explain to people that on planning applications, people do need to give notice before the meeting that they want to speak. There's a maximum of 5 minutes for each speaker. The meeting is live streamed and will be on YouTube until YouTube ceases to exist. So if you don't want to be on camera, if you speak from where you sat, you won't be viewed. But it would help my poor hearing if people did come and either sat at the table over here or perhaps over there, we can hear better what you have to say. So the first speaker that I've got is Lee Greenwood, and if I could ask Lee to come forward. Lee, you're the agent that's heard the application? Yeah? Okay. So you have got up to 5 minutes, and if there are any questions from committee members, we'll ask you after that 5 minutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. I'm here to speak in support of the application for the erection of a bungalow on land at Old Stone Trough Lane in Kelbrook. We know and welcome the contents of the case officer's report, which recommends approval, having considered the relevant local and national policies which are engaged in assessing such a proposal. As you'll be aware, permission in principle was granted at the start by way of an appeal in June 2025, and this remains extant until June 2028. Whilst the new local plan was adopted in Pendle at the end of last year, the presence of the pit is a significant material consideration in the determination of his current submission in accordance with the provisions of section 38(6) of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act. Therefore, the matter of principle is not something which needs to be revisited, accounting for the extant approval. PIC to grant permission for the location, amount and type of development, which in this instance is for a single dwelling. An applicant will be within their rights to apply for any size or type of property following this decision, but in this instance my clients seek permission for a modest bungalow which is to be their future home. As the officer's report confirms, the chosen design, layout, scale and massing of the development raises no conflicts with the policies of the newly adopted local plan, nor those contained within the neighbourhood plan. The submission has generated no adverse comments from statutory consultees. In particular, LCC Highways advise that the technical information provided is wholly acceptable, including the findings of the speed survey and the proposed visibility displays. Accordingly, this does not present any valid reasons for withholding planning permission. In terms of vehicular movements, the applicant being able to live on site will actually reduce activity and avoid the daily comings and goings which currently take place by car in order to care for her horses. The submitted drainage strategy proposes that attenuated surface water flows will be directed to a nearby watercourse and that foul waters will be dealt with by a dedicated package treatment plant, both of which have been found to be acceptable. With regard to the college the submitted appraisal confirms that the site contains limited potential to support protected species and no provision for priority habitat. In summary, the report before you this evening confirms that there are no spatial or technical reasons which weigh against these modest proposals, resulting in the recommendation for approval. This is not speculative development or an effort to maximise land or property values, but an application to provide a proportionally sized home for the landowner. We therefore ask that you endorse the findings of your officers and approve the application this evening. Thank you for the time and the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Could I just ask? Yeah. You mentioned the planning in principle, which was granted on appeal last year. The red line for the pit was smaller than the red line for the current application, which isn't in fact for the technical details, but it's a full application. Yeah. So, could you explain why that is and why it isn't actually following?
Yeah, the red edge was extended because the client wants to be able to live on site during the course of the build project. It's a self-build, so they'll be carrying out the works themselves. So we extended the red edge to the southwest in order to accommodate room for a temporary caravan to include that. So the siting of the property and curtilage that will be afforded is the same as the extended red edge just accommodates the caravan.
Okay. And as far as you're concerned, your belief is that that's an extant approval. In other words, there is a permission in place for the development of the dwelling.
Yeah, section 38.6 of the Act, which I mentioned, says that we determine plan applications in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations dictate otherwise. And the PIP is the material consideration in this instance, that permission principle has been granted for a single property at the site, and that's what we're pursuing. Okay,
thank you very much. I suspect that I'll pick that issue with Laura when we get you to speak later on. Okay. Thank you very much. Right. Can I go to the next speaker, Phil Harris?
Chair, members of the committee, I speak as an objector to this application. Before turning to policy, I would ask members to note this proposal follows a previous planning in principle technical detail submission which was invalid due to an increase in the footprint beyond the parameters of the original PIP. As that submission was invalid, it was never determined and carries no planning weight. It must therefore be treated only as part of the site's planning history and not as a material consideration. The application must be considered as a wholly new proposal and assessed strictly against the current Pendle local plan, the Kelbrook and Sough plan and the National Planning Policy without any reliance on conclusions or assumptions drawn from the invalid submission. Turning to policy, this application must be assessed against the Pendle local plan and in particular policies DM09 and DM26, both of which are directly applicable. Policy DM09 seeks to strictly control development in the countryside and to protect its openness, character and appearance. Development should be of an appropriate scale, well related to its surroundings and should avoid unjustified encroachment into rural areas. This proposal fails policy DM09 because it introduces a new build dwelling in an open countryside location outside the defined settlement boundary with no exceptional justification. The development will result in an unacceptable intrusion into the countryside, causing harm to its rural character and openness. Policy DM09 clearly states outside a defined settlement boundary, development will only be permitted where it meets one of the 7 exemptions it gives. There is no mention in this policy or reason for an exemption in the application. Now tonight a rabbit has come out of the hat that says it's because it's self-built. Now I haven't had a chance to look at the appropriate details of that, but I will point out just as passing that normally that will be a brownfield site and something else which hopefully I'll remember later on. Policy DM26 further reinforces this position by making clear that new housing outside settlement boundaries will only be supported in limited and clearly defined circumstances. The purpose of this policy is to prevent sporadic, isolated and unsustainable residential development that undermines the local plan's spatial strategy. The proposal fails policy DM26 because it represents unjustified housing development outside the settlement boundary in a location that is not supported by the local plan for which no policy compliant justification has been demonstrated. When read together, the policies DM09, DM26 provide a clear and consistent policy framework. New housing in the countryside should be the exception, not the norm. This proposal does not meet that test. The limited benefit of a single dwelling does not outweigh the clear conflict with its adopted local plans. Finally, on policy, the development area identified is so enlarged it invalidated the PIP technical detail consent submission and would allow overdevelopment contrary to the neighbourhood plan and the Pendle local plan 4th edition 2021 to 2040. For these reasons, I respectfully ask members to conclude that the application fails to comply with policies DM09 and DM26 and to refuse planning permission. The other thing that I forgot before was if there's a special need for housing, which there isn't because Pendle now has sufficient for whatever policy it is. I also wish to raise concern about the lack of detail about many aspects of this application. Only time here for one such omission, the lack of any proposed detail whatsoever about the proposed caravan, size, utilities, time frames, so different from the recent application to site a caravan in the garden of a dwelling. Now, we've heard tonight about the need to make the line bigger so we could have the caravan in, but that's a temporary structure. I don't believe we need development for a temporary structure. Members of the public can only comment on information they have access to.
Yeah.
I believe this application,
We're in the last.
has now submitted falls too short of important details in many areas. In the interest of fair, open and transparent, it should not have been brought to committee until it contained enough details to allow the public to comment on actualities rather than mere conjectures. Maybe for that alone, the committee are minded to approve they should defer until a more meat on the bone. This may also allow for a site visit to the committee to make judgments on the application as a whole. I thank the committee for this.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members for Phil? No? Debbie.
Evening. My name's Debbie Richardson and I live in Kelbrook, and I have a few comments about this application, some of which coincide with Phil's as well, but hopefully I won't repeat too much. Again, I would like to point out that this is a new application for a dwelling on the land containing the stables, which is outside the settlement boundary, as Phil has just described, and doesn't conform to any of the criteria that would approve building outside the settlement boundary. The application was originally submitted as a PIP, which was granted on appeal with very specific criteria by the inspector and subsequently withdrawn from the technical details. This new application does not conform to the inspector's comments. The area of the location of dwellings we've already discussed has been increased to almost twice the size to include the stables area as well as the area where they wish to place the caravan. Potentially in the future something could be made to replace the stables. I don't understand why the stables are part of the red line, and does this require a change of use because it's now part of the residential planning application. It should be restricted to the area where the house is going to be built. It's unclear why that was changed at all. There's a request to have a temporary caravan on site, as Phil has already commented on, with no information about the size, the duration and what services would be provided. Currently there are no services on site for water or electricity. The materials proposed for the construction are also not in line with the neighbourhood plan policy KS-1, which states that materials of local distinctiveness should be used, and therefore stone rather than wooden cladding should be used, and the policy doesn't conform to the landscape character either. I've also got concerns about the design of the dwelling. There's a utility room that's being proposed at the back of the garage at the far end with a WC. To access this, somebody has to walk the whole length of the house, and I can't see anybody wanting to walk from one end of the house to the other in the pouring rain. It's also the furthest point from the stable, so I don't really see the point of having an external WC at the furthest point from the house. But I don't know whether that would then support a change of use for the garage at some future stage. I don't know why it's there. I believe that a condition should be made that the garage should remain as a garage throughout the duration of the housing dwelling being there. And I'd also like to comment on the proposed waste treatment plant. The type of plant they've selected needs to be emptied periodically. Its location to the northwest has no vehicle access to facilitate the removal of the waste products periodically. I'd like to understand a bit more about how that was going to operate. All the other things have been addressed by Highways and Construction up to now, so thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And finally, Gary Wilton.
Thank you. I speak as an objector to this application. The planning in principle, which was granted on appeal under the, I believe, the Town and Country Planning Provisions in Principle Order 2017, has within it 3 fixed in principle matters, which are location, land use and amount of development. Location is the area delineated by the red line. Any technical details consent which attempts to change that red line is considered as no longer in accordance with the permission in principle that was granted. This full planning application is therefore a brand new application. It's not some sort of hybrid workaround. It is totally different application that cannot rely upon the previously granted permission in principle. This proposal must therefore be determined against Policy SP04 of the Pendle Local Plan, which sets out the very spatial strategy and settlement hierarchy, and along with the Kelbrook and Suf Neighbourhood Plan, both of which form part of the statutory development plan. As I'm sure you're aware, Policy SP04 is clear that new housing should be directed to sustainable locations within defined settlement boundaries, and that development in the open countryside is not supported except within limited and clearly justified criteria, the test for which this application does not fulfil. The Kelbrook and Suf Neighbourhood Plan further reinforces this approach by focusing housing growth within the settlement boundaries and protecting the surrounding countryside from sporadic development. To reiterate, the application site lies outside the defined settlement boundary in the open countryside, and the proposal is in direct conflict with both Policy SP04 and the Neighbourhood Plan. And Pendle has an approved local plan with its 5-year housing land supply in existence. If permission were granted in this case, it would make it significantly more difficult for the council to resist similar proposals elsewhere in the countryside, especially in settlement adjacent areas. It would undermine both the local plan and many neighbourhood plans in Pendle. I believe it would open the floodgates to similar full applications and consequent appeals. You would have set a precedent. When the original planning in principle was submitted, it was refused. It was then robustly defended at appeal. So now, when there is an even stronger case for refusal and adherence to the local development plan, why is there a recommendation to approve? What has changed? The limited benefit of a single dwelling does not outweigh the clear policy conflict with Policy SP04. The local plan and the Kelbrook, neither with the local plan and the Kelbrook development plan. For these reasons, I ask members to determine this application on its own merits, give full weight to the local development plan, and perhaps may I respectfully ask that the committee arrange a site visit before making any judgment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers. I'll just check again if the committee wants to ask any questions of the speakers. No? Okay. It strikes me that there are some matters of planning policy and principle which we need to explore before we consider the details of the application itself, materials and so on and so forth. But I am aware, Sharon, you wanted to speak. You want to speak before I start quizzing Laura?
Yeah. I think a lot of what I'm going to say has already been said. Obviously, coming from the guidance of the neighbourhood plan, Kelbrook and Suf Neighbourhood Plan, the original objection, as Gary stated, as a parish council we objected to, and the reasoning behind that was the settlement boundary and it being contrary to the policies in the local plan. And that, that remains to this day, that's a fact that it is building there, despite the fact that it had been appealed and repaired. It is a building that's outside the settlement boundary and it's in conflict with the neighbourhood plan. The other slight concern in terms of neighbourhood plan, which I think it's Debbie that mentioned that, is the materials, the proposed materials, and the wooden cladding in particular. The policy states that it should have materials of local distinctiveness, such as stone, rather than wooden cladding.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, Laura, this planning in principle that was granted on appeal, there's a challenge as to whether that does indeed establish the principle, given that the red line is extended beyond the PIP determination. So, for a start, could you unpick that for us and give a view as to what's the correct position?
Yeah. I think to begin with, it's a procedural issue. So the permission in principle, which was the first stage of the application, did have a different red edge, which was smaller, and for that reason we couldn't process the application for the technical details consent. Now I think there's been perhaps some misunderstanding of what the validation process would be, which is when an application is received by the planning department, we would look to see whether or not we can process it, and if we can, the application is validated, and if not, it's invalidated. So this is the issue which a number of the speakers have raised, which meant it wouldn't be possible to process the technical details consent, which is the second stage of the permission in principle procedure. And for that reason, the applicant has submitted a full application. So I think it wouldn't be quite right to say that the application doesn't have any principle, because it is a material consideration that the appeal has been allowed there previously, and the permission in principle is still extant until 2028.
Okay, so you're saying that the planning in principle has set the principle, and that's there even though the red line is different?
Yeah, I think perhaps to assist with this, I would draw members' attention to the update report, which we've set out on the first page that the principle of development has been established. But even if we have to relook at this as part of the full application, and if the view is taken that we need to reconsider the principle, there is a policy within the local plan, policy DM27, which deals specifically with self and custom builds in the open countryside. And this relates to any application that's put forward which is located outside but closely to a defined settlement boundary. And it says that if the development would not adversely affect the settlement character, residential amenity or access to recreation, then it could be supported. It also goes on to say that under that policy it has to meet the criteria that either the applicant is a resident of Pendle, or that they have a close family member who is a resident of Pendle. And that is the case. That's what we understand to be the position in this case.
Okay, so what you're saying there is, well, sorry, some words in your mouth. Are you saying that the full application, because of DM27, would be one that could fulfil the requirements of that policy, irrespective of the presence of the planning and municipal approval?
Yeah, I think that is the case. I think we're saying that the current position is that the permission in principle exists, and it is the view of the officers that that is the case. But even if that were not to be the case, policy DM27 makes exception for self and custom built properties, and this is abutting the settlement boundary.
Okay. Right. In terms of the neighbourhood plan, Calvert and South neighbourhood plan, there are requirements in there, clearly settlement boundary and the like. And am I right in thinking that the Pendle local plan takes precedence over the Calvert and South neighbourhood plan in terms of building outside the settlement boundary?
It all forms part of the development plan for Pendle. So depending on which area of Pendle you're in, if we were to take Trawden as an example,
no, we don't want to take Trawden. I mean, we've got enough with Calvert and South.
You would have to take the neighbourhood plan and the local plan policies together. The idea being that they've been examined, the neighbourhood plan has been examined against national and local policy.
And it's compatible?
Yeah. So it's all forming part of the development plan.
Okay.
There isn't a hierarchy in that case.
Right. I'm looking at Lowell now because Lowell is the lead member for planning policy.
Chair, I think policy DM27 on the weighted balance, given the other material concerns of this planning application just on its own, is quite strong. In addition, I think if you apply a common sense approach, the permanent structure on this application is within the pit boundary. And if you consider them as two separate applications for, the house and the temporary caravan, then the house would be, considered with the pit in mind. And the temporary caravan, I don't see would be an issue with, I'm sure we've passed similar things before. So, on the weighted balance, I think either way you go, DM27 or the pit, I think the application stands up on its own merits, and we should just consider it with that.
Okay. There are other bits and bats that I want to explore, but I wanted to try and get the policy bottomed out. Could I just check with committee in terms of the policies and whether this complies with policy or not? Are there any further questions or comments? Lola?
The treatment to the gable ends, the K rendering.
Can we go on to design as a separate issue? Or?
Okay, no, I have no principal concerns.
Okay. So, planning policies, any further questions? Are people clear in their minds as to what the position is? Because you're looking a bit puzzled.
I was more looking that way.
All right, okay. It's a permanent appearance rather than... yeah, okay. I wish we'd have just had a technical details application. Final question in this sphere is, I think it was Gary who said, if this were approved, it would set a precedent for other applications outside settlement boundaries in open countryside. So, Laura, what's your response to that, please?
I would say that each case has to be determined on its own merit, so we wouldn't be setting a precedent in this particular case, or indeed any other, because we have to look at the merits of each case as they are brought to us.
Okay, right. Can we go on to matters of design, etc.? So Lola, you were raising an issue in terms of the design there.
Yeah, so is there sightlines from any public highways? I suppose it's a question to the agent as well. Is there any sightlines to those gables from public highways? I mean, bright light is quite stark in the landscape.
Laura?
There are public rights of way which run between Old Stone Trough Lane and the main road, but I believe there's enough vegetation along the lines of the right of way and in the fields in between that it wouldn't be stark. It is something that if you feel strongly about, we could condition in terms of the materials to get a sample of any hair that's used, or indeed any other material that's put forward.
Chair, could you invite the agent in to comment on the question?
Lee, in terms of the gable end render,
Fixed on the colour. I don't think we were especially fixed on the
I'm not.
on the colour. I think there
I'm
was
not
actually.
too offensive to the colour if it's not prevalent in the sightlines from
Public
highways. Yeah.
I think we've got a landscaping scheme to go in, and there is a condition on materials anyway, so we'll be in the offices on the committee case to have a say on that.
okay, thank you. My question about materials was whether the proposed materials were consistent with the character of the neighbourhood. And I am fully aware that we've got quite a mix of materials in that area. You know, if you look at Quernmore Drive, if you look at the other properties in the area. But Laura, consistent with the character?
Yeah, I think with that in mind, there are other properties within the area that do have rendered elements to them, and I wouldn't have said that it was particularly out of character for this area. It's a single story property, and I don't believe that it would be sort of standing out for any particular design reasons from the proposals that we've seen.
Okay. The proposed timber cladding?
Yeah, again, I think that's something that we have seen on other applications. It's not entirely out of character. It is something that we could control by condition. So I think it depends if that's something that you feel very strongly about. We could either condition it so that no timber cladding could be on the building, or through the condition that's suggested by the officer, which is to see samples of all the facing materials.
Okay, I mean, I would not want to get rid of timber cladding and end up with white render. So, you know, I would want something that is more in character with the community. But, you know, whether that's an element of natural stone.
I would like to agree with you there. It's Yorkshire Dales Village and not a Wild West stage. So I think Yorkshire Stone would look far better than timber planning. I would personally say, as Gary, Debbie and Phil said, we should maybe defer this and have a site visit, and then we could actually see exactly on site what the views are going to be and what's going to be visible and things like that. Postpone it for defer it for another date to give us a chance to digest, because there's a lot going in that could possibly affect a small Yorkshire town village. Yeah, a small Yorkshire village of natural, of great beauty.
Okay, well, rather than pursuing the issue now, there is a suggestion for a site visit and defer it to the next meeting for that. Is that seconded? Lola? No? Chris? Okay. Right. My final question, which I will ask, is about the caravan and the issues raised in terms of how long it's going to be there, this and that and the other. I'll put the question in order that when we discuss this again at the next meeting, that we'll have some answers. Okay, not expecting an answer now. All right, so Lola.
Before we go back, I mean, on the cladding issue, it's quite convincing natural stone composite cladding options nowadays for sites. And I wonder if those material options have been considered in discussion with the applicant.
Okay, well, I think the committee's minded to defer, so again, it's a question to be sorted out.
But I invite a comment from the agent again on that.
Okay, I'm happy to take a further comment, Lee.
Yeah, we just wanted something to break up the elevation, so timber was the choice, but we're open to discussion. Okay, right. Laura?
Just comment on the temporary caravan. There is a condition in the update report that states that it would have to be removed, so we could control that so that it wouldn't remain there longer than a month after the development is brought into the
Okay. Right. There's a proposal to defer to the next meeting in order to have a site visit. Moved and seconded. Those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's carried. Right. Well, sorry, folks. But better safe than sorry. So the next meeting will be at the Rain Hall Centre in Balmoldswick, which has a bit more space, but I think we've all fitted in here okay this evening. If you want to stay, you're very welcome, but if you want to leave, I'll just pause the meeting for a couple of minutes in order that we can get out in an orderly fashion. Thank you. The next meeting is in 4 weeks' time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving down the agenda, item 6B is appeals. We have got a report. Is that moved? So all shout at once. Is it moved? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions on that? No. Item 7 is enforcement action, and we can see on the former wall story offices that the application has been made to the Environment Agency for the bridge crossing. Greenfield Lane, we've got a court date of 25th of February. I don't know how many times we've had them. Thank you. We have got the outstanding issue of United Utilities, Lancashire County Council, and the use of UU land. Could we just have a resolution that nudges people to get on with that? So I'm not quite sure if that's Neil to deal with or not. Are there any further comments or questions on the outstanding enforcements? Nope. Moving on then, item 8, we will come to, obviously, you're here for duration, so. Item 8 is the area committee budget, and there was a report that people may or may not have got through the post. Could I just check if people have got it, as a way of checking whether the post is arriving or not? It wouldn't have gone to you, Sharon. Okay. So this is a regular report giving us an update, and within the update there's reference to the unallocated funding. At the last meeting, committee agreed that we would devote virtually everything in next year's budget and whatever we could afford from this year's budget towards projects that were put in the impact fund list. And when I had a look at this with the updated figures, I reckoned we could probably scrape together about 55,000, which I did do a breakdown based on our normal allocation per electorate per population, which I've provided to Ryan. There is a technical issue in that committees are only allowed to carry forward a sum of money equivalent to their annual allocation, and if we try and carry forward more than that, there is a risk that we would lose it, and that did happen to the Nelson Committee a couple of years ago. So I don't think it shows any mercy if we try to do the same. So which paragraph is it? Item 2. So bottom of page 2, it says that our current slippage is 42,000 and odd. So effectively, then there's the deallocation that's in respect of the retaining wall in South Park. So if you look at the top of page 3, we've got just shy of 13,000, which needs to be allocated. Does it need to be disbursed?
Yeah.
Disbursed.
I think so. Yeah.
So my suggestion would be, I mean, there might be some other stuff comes out of this in the meantime, but my suggestion would be that the March meeting, and subject to agreement with a body such as Barnoldswick Town Council, is that we transfer whatever sum of money there is towards the impact fund projects to Barnoldswick Town Council for them to hold in support of those projects and that then gets us below our carry forward figure, and is a neat workaround so that we stay within the financial regulations. So I'm not suggesting we do it at this point, but if we get to the next meeting, which is obviously the last meeting before year end, we can do that. Does that make with agreement? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So looking at. Yeah. We're going to.
There's no request for new bins in West Craven area, so I don't know if you.
Okay. What you want us to take that away from you?
I don't particularly, Chair, but I'm just making you.
Okay. Right.
I've been a request for a bin in the soap. Because the bin that was at the bus stop in the soap has disappeared.
Okay. Right. There's a nuance. If it's a new bin, a new location, area committee money. If it's a replacement, David Walker money.
So it went against Suffolk Mill one day and the next day it
Gone. Probably ended up in bed.
So
Not
Yeah.
checked. No, I'll tell them it's not in the work.
Okay.
I know it's been sent through on the Queen Street.
Thank you, Sharon.
Sorry, Chair, that's got
Hang on a second. The love clean streets not feed through to Pendle?
Not rare occasion, it's not frequent, constant stream messages, so if I just take the details now.
Okay, all right.
So it's Suffolk Mill.
So it's Suffolk Mill when the bus stop, the bin is from along from the bus stop, and move the bus stop.
So Lancashire County Council took the bin.
No, we're not sure they did, because somebody saw
They stole the bus
They
stop.
took the bus stop.
They stole the bus stop.
I know the bin was spotted still there, but now it's gone. So whether it's gone with the bus stop or whether somebody's gone, which has leant against the wall or do something with it,
Okay.
nobody seems to know.
Well,
There is no long. There's a bus stop there. I don't know if they've got routes yet. The routes been.
yeah, the rules are.
There is no way around the bus stop.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
So we can feed that back now. Okay, so.
Okay. So this issue about Love Clean Streets and the County Council not providing information to Pendle Council, can we take that up separately and make representations to, either ask them not to have categories that they, just going nowhere, or if they do have categories that are stuff for Pendle Council that they have systems in place that makes that comes through to us. Yeah. Okay. Right. In terms of the decisions we've got here, the first few are the usual ones, and there is this deallocation of, I can't find the figure, of £1,941 and 11 pence. Now, before we agreed to deallocate that, I know that Scott was trying to find some money to sort out a drainage issue in Suffolk Park. There's a culvert that runs under the park that was blocked, and he was hoping to tap into some of this money to deal with that. Are we aware that that's still being the case?
I'm sorry, Chair, I haven't spoken recently on this matter with Scott. I'm sure if he was looking for money several weeks ago, they'll still be looking for it.
Okay, well, could I suggest that we defer the decision on that deallocation, because if it's needed to sort out the culvert, I think it's an entirely reasonable thing to do. And if Scott managed to do the work on the retaining wall, for a couple of grand cheaper than anticipated, I think it's sort of like a bit of a virtuous use of the money to reward economy with which they've already done work there. Yeah? Is that okay? Are there any further recommendations that we need to deal with? If not, so deferring the deallocation subject to the engineering manager's comments, and we'll consider transferring funding for impact fund programme at the next meeting according to how much we need to carry forward. Yeah? Lola?
Chair, just an alternate suggestion. We've got £6,000 in the process improvement grants, which hasn't been spent a penny in a year. Could we not look to putting that towards street scene improvement in the purchase of street furniture renewal?
We could, but at the last meeting you weren't here, and the committee decided that we put as much as we could, if not all of next year's allocation, towards the impact fund projects. That does have some public realm stuff within it, but I know that we've got an inquiry in terms of shopfront improvements, so if we moved all the money out, then we got...
I'm just thinking if we need to get this spent by March, obviously we'll top that up going into the new year for the process improvement grants.
Well, we'd have to rejig whether we could use all of the application.
Environmental Services bought £6,000 worth of street furniture. No doubt we would use quite a bit of that in the new public realm works. And we have put some more benefits into this.
Well, one of the pride in place impact fund, I didn't want to use PIP again because we have too many PIPs earlier on. I mean, we could do the seats in the EAB bus station shelter. It's not going to be a fantastic amount of money, but we were going to do that out of the impact fund anyway, so we could agree to do that. And it's something to know to the job. Yeah?
Just thinking definitely spend it by March.
Okay. What do people think about that? So, if we, just say, right, let's do those seats in every bus shelter. I mean, it could be added to the contract that we've got going at the minute. Yeah?
Yeah. Who does it get allocated to fund? Who does it actually get allocated to?
Well, it would be up to Scott to spend it. Yeah? Right, okay, all agreed on that. Thank you very much. Anything further on that? No? One more item and then we'll come to yours. Alright. So, traffic liaison meeting, 1st of December, and we've got the schedule in front of us here. Just scanning down it. Salterford Abbey Road, no waiting at any time. Awaiting completion of works before sealing, so I think that's going to happen. Station Road, Barnoldswick, my old favourite. New bus stand and confirmation of existing restrictions, which they've ignored everything that we said about changing things and doing them differently. On that one, the state of Station Road is so bad in terms of its bumps and hollows that it would be nonsense for them to put the new road markings down on top of a technical term crap carriageway. And I think the committee ought to resolve again to ask that the surface is sorted out and that they sort the surface out before they start putting the different road markings down. What do people think? Yeah? Okay. Can we agree that? Moving on to the next page, top line. There is no such place in Balmoral as Albert Square, so I've no idea where they're talking about. But we do know that the back of the square, they're going to put no loading or unloading down, and given that there is a particular problem with a metal basement cover, you know, in imminent risk of collapse, not before time. But again, can we reiterate that Albert Square does not exist? I don't know how we move forward with the proper naming of it by Pendle Council, but can we resolve once more to take this up with whatever powers that be, and you know, get a sensible name in place? Yeah? Okay.
Does the committee have any suggestions from them for the committee to determine?
I think it would be ward councillors, but from memory, and Brian's come on the committee since, but we've always called it back at square, and we don't understand why it can't just be called back at square.
Logical.
Yeah.
So things that everyone knows where it is.
Back at square.
Exactly spell that.
Looking at the narrative, is there anything for us? Church Street, Balmoral, taxi rank removal, and the traffic liaison meeting does not object to the planned removal of the taxi rank, but the Pendle Borough Council may benefit from consulting with the county councillors. There we go. Police items, retrospective plan application, Harry Street, Salford. I'm not sure if there's any action from this, but I noticed that the property in question was having its parking area surfaced last week. Or was it this week? It was Monday. So I think it's all water under the bridges, that one. Lola.
Thanks, Chair. So item 10, road safety. Nothing to report again. And I just want to keep drawing attention to it, because why on earth is like the major sort of officer liaison meeting in terms of traffic not bringing up any traffic safety concerns, because the bloody well is done. I mean, look, just over the border in Yorkshire, they've got a beyond zero approach. They're literally going out, and any accident hotspots, they're redesigning or they're scheduling redesigns, you know, to reduce accident rates, with an expectation that a well-designed road system should have zero accidents. And Lancashire is continuing to not have that approach and treat accident costs like it has been treated for the past 50 years of auto-centric design. So, I mean, I'd just like to keep making that point that if when this comes through, I at least want to see something here that LC is taking a positive approach, proactive approach to road safety, instead of a passive, you know, there's nothing outside of the expected accident costs of the design, which is people's lives. I mean, it's reducing people's lives to statistics. I mean, we saw it in West Craven, in multiple places, Calvert Roundabout, Skipton Road. I'm sure there's others that I can't remember off the top of my head. But those people were considered statistics based on the accident cost built into the design of those junctions and roundabouts. And I think that's so wrong. So with the strongest writing, I think we should be letting this liaison meeting know, the county council know, that that's not acceptable.
Okay. Do you want to crystallise that into a sentence or two that Joanne can write down?
Just send them a message for it and,
I don't think...
I think we have raised it before, which is
we have, but I'll keep doing it until it says something to report there.
Okay, so committee resolved to reiterate its concern at the lack of proactive road safety measures being considered by County Council in view of the continuing injuries and
committee reaffirms that zero accident deaths from road traffic accidents should be achievable and desirable.
Okay. Yeah. Last item, Ward Street area widening of footway. So committee will be will know that there was a slight modification to the scheme of the footpath, and I mean the work is almost finished on that side now, but the footpath was widened where the pinch point was, and there's an outstanding request to have the yellow line outside the shops changed to a limited parking so that people could park for 20 minutes or whatever the figure is. In reality, people do pull up there, pop into the village bakery or go to S&B Fruits. And here you can see Scott Worley championing the cause. All in attendance agreed that the restrictions could be proposed to be removed, providing the remaining carriageway width supports this, and LCC to proceed with informed consultation if this is the case. Now, we know that the carriageway width is adequate to support parking there because people do park on the yellow lines and there isn't a problem. Hopefully this is getting a positive response. So can we put our tuppence in to say that we do support the limited parking being introduced at that location?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Anything further? No. We'll move the report with those resolutions then. That brings us on to Dial-Ride bus service, and you recall that at last meeting we asked if the accessible transport services at Lancaster County Council could extend their Dial-Ride service to Dalesview Park. They have looked into this request, but say that the vehicles they use would not be able to turn round at the entrance to Dalesview Park, so unfortunately they are unable to extend the Dial-Ride service to residents there. Now, I wasn't expecting them to turn round at the entrance. I was expecting them to drive into the park, turn round in the park and come back out again. So I'm just wondering whether there's a bit of a miscommunication there.
The park itself is gated.
No. But the barrier is still there, it's always open, isn't it?
Has the barrier been removed?
Is there any barrier?
No barrier.
No barrier. But there was also like a little car parking area on the inside of, on the road side of the barrier, wasn't there? Is that still there?
Yeah.
So before the barrier, there was a little car park area. Is that still there?
Yeah,
And
that's
that'd be more than enough. That'd be enough room to turn around in anyway, wouldn't it?
You won't get a bus to turn around
No,
there.
you just have to just go past where the barrier was, and then there's a turning circle.
There's,
You could turn.
there's quite a big area there that you could turn in. Yeah.
Do you want to speak?
I mean, we haven't really a lot to say because most of you know the details anyway. I mean, I have to say I was very disappointed when I saw that response because it was very dismissive and I don't think they'd even thought about it. I mean, it used to be a caravan park. It's all about the access, I think. It did used to be a caravan park where they stored caravans as well. So twin axle caravans, long wheelbases would go up, use that slope, and never had a problem. We've got motorhomes that come up onto site now, 7.5 metre length motorhomes with a long overhang at the back. They access the park. We've got delivery vans, wagons, ambulances, fire engines. We've had them, haven't we? Yeah. So I just think they need to approach the junction with a little slower, because the report that we got back from when Pilkington Bus tried to access it, he went at a rate of knots. Whether he thought he needed to get a bit of speed up to get up the hill, I don't know, but he said he cut his back end. But yet, no other vehicles seem to have that issue. So I just think, they don't like the road. I think that is one of the problems. They don't like the actual lane itself. It's not so much the entrance to the park, it's the actual B road because of the amount of traffic. But that is a straight stretch of road there, and I just don't see what the issue is. I just don't know what else to say. I just think they're being really negative, and I think a site visit and put them on the spot really, because they just don't want to provide a service. There is people up there, they genuinely want a service.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, there's no doubt that the Pilkington bus did damage the back end of the bus because of the geometry and the slope, and subsequently the bus did break down because it
I understand
its radiator. But I'm absolutely convinced that the accessible transport vehicles don't have that big, they're not the same wheelbase at all. So I can't see that they would have difficulty. And as we mentioned earlier on, you can turn around within the development, not at the entrance. Well, bizarre turning around at the entrance. I mean, I'm actually swing round in the car if I'm just going up Manchester Road and I want to turn around.
Sorry, can I just say there was one thing I wanted to say and I've forgotten. That if they felt that they couldn't use the entrance, would it be possible to provide a service that picked up at the entrance so that they could come up Saltforth Lane, along Manchester Road, pick up at Dalesview and then drive down into Barnoldswick and do a circular route if they're saying they can't turn round?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
All right, so the suggestion there is that we ask the powers that be to come on site visit and establish what is possible. I've got Susan and then Chris. Sorry, I thought you were waving earlier on.
No.
Okay, Chris.
Thanks.
from the reply that they've given, they don't actually say that they've tried it with the relevant vehicle. I don't know whether they're just doing it on paper from their desk. They may or may not be. So I would definitely support a request for a site visit
with a minibus,
with a vehicle, and if there is anybody on Dales View or indeed anywhere else who is good at turning vehicles of that size, we ask them if they want to come along and maybe have a go themselves. Well, not have a go themselves, but direct how the daily ride might be done.
Okay. I mean, approaching from the lane head direction, from the sort of direction, is the most sensible route because it's sort of like straight up. Whereas if you come in up Manchester Road and doing a right, it is more acute and difficult to achieve. Okay. Are we agreed then? We ask them for a site visit, bring your bus, and we'll show you that it's possible. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, if you want to stay, you're very welcome. Next item is the former school playing field off Clifford Street. County Council responded to say that the land is allocated to the adjacent school. It needs to remain unused for 10 years before it can revert back. But LCC think that that is the only outdoor land the school has, and that this will be looked at unfavourably.
This might be excuse, I've got a this crisis for last hour.
Okay.
Prematurely. Is that okay?
Thank you, right. Just as you're leading,
yes.
Church School,
yes.
It has outdoor space within the school grounds.
It does, yeah.
Indeed. Yes.
It does.
Right. So, I think, another one where we ask the County Council, let's have a site visit and visit the school, demonstrate that it does have outdoor space. Chris?
Could I ask, I'm not sure whether this is a separate issue, but it certainly overlaps. Coinciding with this, we have, I have a request from a resident of Myrtle Grove on behalf of many of the residents in the area about the condition of the trees at the boundary there. They have not been pollarded for some time, and I understand that they used to be. There is an ash there, I am told, showing signs of dieback. So on the basis of this, I would either like to ask advice on whom I should approach on the matter, or simply request that this committee asks.
Okay. In terms of the trees on the boundary, that's part of the land, and it would be the same people, the County Council, that we would approach in terms of use of the land. So I think we would pick that up if we ask them for a site visit, and at the same time to consider the trees on that boundary. There is a wider issue in terms of the fact that the Clifford Street itself is collapsing into that land and needs reconstructing really, because there are vast sort of ups and downs amongst it, which isn't doing anybody any good. Lola.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, just 10 seconds. There was a comment on the state of the road as well.
Yeah, that would be the highways people rather than the...
yes. Yeah.
Lola.
Would it be too much of a push to ask for another look at this footpath link from Clifford Street to the school as well?
It's too much of a push to ask for to allow a former school playing field to be used as a playing field. So, come on, you're asking them to, reconsider the football. We'd be far better waiting until we get the Unitary Council. We might get some more sense out of the new Unitary Council.
But in the meantime, you've got been like 5 years with kids walking to school on that main road instead. So the shoes don't get muddy.
Okay.
We've got £500 in the capital programme.
Yeah.
For Scott to progress anything he can.
Yes.
And I think it's just entirely sensible that if we've got LCC estates out, it's their land, it's their school, it's their playing field, they can look at their path and put in.
Okay. I mean, I think we're choking the donkey if we're not careful. But yeah, fine. Let's ask for the footpath as well. So for members who weren't here previously, some years ago probably, we asked for Lancashire County Council to surface a path across this land, not the playing field, but the same plot of land, from the end of Clifford Street to the ginnel next to the school, in order that it could be used in all weathers for kids to have off the main road access.
It's only 30-40 metres.
Pardon?
It's only 30-40 metres. I mean, I won't expect it to cost more than, what, £2,000-3,000 if we wanted to just surface it and all that.
Well, yeah. But if you remember, one of the then county councillors said, well, she wanted it lighting and it, yeah, okay.
I think we could have a sensible approach to a cheaper option nowadays. I don't know if people agree with that.
Right, okay. John, can we add that on to the... Okay, anything further on this land of Clifford Street? We haven't got a resolution telling the county council that they could do the sorting the road out again. But why don't we add that on as well? Will that be a request to the highways people? Yeah. Okay, are we moving on to item 12, items for discussion? Item 12A, this is about the Gleeson development of new roads and the generators that are currently powering up the site and causing annoyance and nuisance to nearby residents who are fed up in
the noise 24 hours a day and the vibrations going through the houses. Some of the say constant hum. Unfortunately, because Gleeson's have allowed people to move onto the site before the site has been finished or got any electricity in, that they have to keep their generators running, because otherwise the residents have no electricity.
So the item on the agenda is to ask Northern Power Grid to expedite connection to the mains for the development, which we hope is going to be quite soon, but if we lend our shoulders to the wheel. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So request the Northern Power Grid to connect the site up as soon as they can. Yeah?
Just on, I was just answering here, Sue, yes, Gleeson's have asked for the connection, and when I was talking to the site manager on Friday, he believed that it would be quite imminent, hopefully, either late February or early March.
Okay. Right, well, there's no harm in asking Northern Power Grid.
Obviously for the residents, about this for all Christmas and the New Year.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully they can do it tomorrow. There is a way of, no, I don't think it'd work actually. They could dig the cable up and then it no. Item 12B, and I know Brian, you wanted to speak about this one. So it's the change of area ticketing that Transdev have introduced, where they've increased the area that people can use the tickets So it's not just within Pendle, but as a consequence of that, they increase the prices, and for people either travelling to work or school within Pendle, it's led to quite massive increases in the costs. So a weekly ticket is now a lot more than it was previously. And I think what Bryony would like to do is pass a resolution formally requesting Transdev to review the arrangements for area ticketing and to either revert back to the previous way of working or adjust the prices in such a way that there isn't the humongous increase that otherwise people are getting. Lola?
Thanks, Chair. I think this is one of the main advantages of a combined authority. With the powers for transport, we could control metro areas for transit like this without the private companies just using it as a backdoor for inflation. And it's terrible that we're doing that and not offering people the old choice, which is more affordable.
Okay. Does the committee agree then that we've met representations to Transdev?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, yeah. I'll say that with that, I mean, basically, there are a lot of the parents, the young parents in Barnard who have children in Erie, and they're saying it's either a case of they can pay to go to school or they can't. So it's gone up that much, and especially if you've got 2 or 3 children. I think it has gone up in a huge increase. I was trying to find the email about it. And a lot of them are actually considering now teaching the children at home because they can't afford to send them on the bus. So.
Not good. 12C, problems with Barnsley fire engine exiting the fire station. And I understand this issue is because curbside parking is so close to the fire station that they can't do a right turn and go down Wellhouse Road. So they have to turn left, come on to Fernley Avenue, and if they want to go in that direction, they'd have to come all the way around in order to be able to access somewhere that literally could be 50 metres down the road, but they'd have to go half a kilometre or more to get to it. So I think it's an issue of raising it with perhaps the county council to ask them to look at the problem and facilitate safe and speedy egress from the fire station. Yeah? Okay. And 12D, vehicles mounted to the pavement at the bottom of Saltcliffe Road, Erie. And this is something that 2 people have raised with me independently. And because of parked vehicles on the right-hand side going up outside the church, when people come around the corner from Beach Avenue on Erie Road, they come around the corner and there could be a car coming down towards them, and instead of waiting, and letting that car pass, or it could be a bus, some people are mounting the pavement, driving up the pavement. One gentleman stepped out and was almost taken out by a car driving on the pavement. So I think it's a case of perhaps asking the county council if they can do anything about it. Obviously it's not the best of situations. We've got David and then Lola.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, maybe, Councillor Gavin, we could, like we have on Victoria Road, have some bollards in place to stop people from doing that. If that can maybe that, and then they're going to damage the car rather than damage it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
like we have, it's like we have on Victoria Road with the bollards.
yeah.
Completely agree. We should put some very immovable objects in the way. If someone doesn't have a curb, they do some serious damage to the vehicles. Because that will completely dissuade them from trying to in the first place.
Okay. Right.
I'd rather a bollard than a person, right?
Yes. So we put a suggestion of utilising bollards to prevent.
We'd also match the town as well, because obviously, we have the black bollards, the metal bollards.
Yeah, I mean, you can also...
In keeping with the
We're in
area.
keeping with the area.
You can also swap out the curbs for less harmful curbs too.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Would suggest bollards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's all broken glass.
No. Okay. Right. And generally with all of these, perhaps apart from the Northern Power Grid one, that we ask for a report to come back to committee,
Yes.
and then it's on the agenda for a future meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. We get to the part of the agenda which we have to take in private now. So we've got 3 issues that we'll be discussing. We have to move a formal resolution to exclude the public and press. So can I thank anybody that's been watching the live stream, and say good night, and we'll switch stop.